Well, the story I have is a 6-part, and now I realize it actually has the 7th part, which is, I would say, something like my own history of past lives and coming to the present and all the other kinds of stuff like that. So that's another story in itself, as they all are, but they're all connected, and that's what's interesting, I think, really about it. From the book that I had written back 2000 to 2003, I mean, yeah. And in those years, I had been compiling, and then there's more to it that came afterwards. But anyway, I find it an interesting cycle, and it relates to the cycle that DUANE had been describing with his works, for his experience, etc. And in a way, it relates to everybody that way, because everyone has this role of cycle of experience, let's say, and it's in a certain kind of a composite, which I mean is it's kind of like if you look at a 5-pointed star and then you see a star. It has 5 points, and it has 6 spaces inside those 5 points where you draw lines, and that's a figure of a presentation, but it also relates to our cycle of experience, that is. And each of us has, same thing with having our multi-dimensional or our 7 bodies or 6 bodies rather, and that's the creation experience or relative position with it that we all have individually, and the more that one identifies with the actuality of that, and also with their individual experiences or storyline, if you will. The helpfulness that I had by writing the story is the same thing, I think, DUANE, I could say, similar in that he's presenting and I was experiencing these different insight contexts of lifetimes and wrote it in the book, or in the different parts of the book, which were coming through, let's say, to present it and or to identify it for myself in the writing. And I go, oh, okay, that's coordinated with this, and oh yeah, okay. And like we get when we have our own experiences that we are identifying with or noticing, our human personal experiences with family and friends, and or with the culture and nationality, race, and sex identification that we have or that others have with us, or interrelated, whatever. And that's a whole nother one. And then there's, let's say, our universal experience with many lifetimes in different bodies, maybe different planets and systems and all of that stuff. That's another one. And that's another story that I had a relation in this cycle. Okay, so, and there's 6 of them, I guess I would say. Generally, it's not to be matters how specific we are. Some relates to our mental body, some to our emotional body, some to our physical, etc., and so forth and so on. Causal body is another one. So once we kind of identify these, and we can do it in a real simple way, it doesn't have to be a long novel writing or whatever, but it's some kind of a way that we can hold it or respect it enough to know what it's really referencing, which of course isn't anything specific, and we'll say it's not an of course, but once it's, as DUANE recognized the all-isness, that allowed for the identifications or the reference relations with all the rest, and how they might be have been employed or applied or related, I guess, one of those three, you know, and ourselves in our own intentionality of what we're experiencing or what we really need to do or not do. That's another one, is to see what would happen and occur, and you know, you don't want to repeat that, which the cyclic lords of time lords, I guess we call them, want us to do, is to be continually locked into that circle. And so some of the stories can be a lot of fun and pretty dynamic, and all of a sudden we go, wow, you know, I'm the Empress now, which is a joke about one of our friends who identified a bunch of her own and then decided that she was going to apply one of the principal characters to that in her own identifications, and then so forth and so on, same thing. So there's a kind of a conundrum involved in this process, but we have to, that's it. All right, so I sent or compiled 6 different storylines and put them into one of the, here in this New Ages SKYPE, I sent them to Val, let's just say, and wrote them out and had them and you know, they were just cliff notes, synopsis, and quite interesting. So I think I've done 1 or 2, but I haven't given any of the specifics in our, except for maybe 1 here in Skype on the chat line. And all right, let me see in the chat line what I've got. Maybe one of them will be a fun story to share right now. Okay, Peter is story number 2. Okay, I'll read it. In the eastern mountains of Carolina, a Cherokee half-blood Indian geophysicist or geologist or what have you loses his girlfriend, who he just met, in the portal, cavern, cave, doorway space inside I call it a light doorway or space, dimensional place or crossover, you know. I think what we call it when we have the wormhole, you know, something like that. And this is a doorway to the real side. On the inside, it is on the inside of an electric dam power station, which is in a big lake in the Carolinas. It's a place there that exists like that. Fontana Lake, I think it's called. And I wrote this when I had just moved or finished writing it when I moved here to the Georgia-Florida border, which is, you know, 5-6 hours driving away. And okay, so there was this a hurricane or a huge storm coming towards the area where these people live. And I wrote where he also, that is the hero, Geo guy, discovers the happy hunting grounds of the Indians. He goes through the portal inside the cavern, and he meets, and also his grandfather and the tribe people and the local white population of the country living there, on the physical side, but he goes the other side and he meets the Indians and other ancestral beings who are living there. It's pretty much whatever the heaven is that people go to, I think, after they pass, depending on each individual and their party of groups and so forth and so on. Anyway, he was trying to find, the people were trying to find a unity of some economic and community project together. It was something like building a resort casino in the mountain area in the Indian territory there, and sharing the prosperity, so-called, like that, but also just a kind of a coordination of the race groups and so forth like that. Okay, but anyway, so they're talking about doing this project, but this hurricane from Florida side south is that they rarely come that far in or do that much damage up in the mountains, actually hardly ever. But the storm comes to promote, let me say, the storm is a relation to what's going on now, because it's just happened again today in Houston. It had a huge storm, maybe some tornadoes, but I don't know that for sure. But it was evidently really bad. And last week we had one up here that really, in the county that I live, primarily with tornadoes, and it knocked out power in where I live for over 24 hours. They didn't fix our power. And we had the hurricane that came in last year, October, and I had in September, and I then went to New York because of it, or partially because of it, or this plan to do that, and go to New York and do whatever, singing to you and blah, 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 on a trip. But it was necessitated and effectively created by the storm, which is somewhat the purposes of all these storms, is really a wake-up call for people, and that's related here with the story. So I said the storm comes to promote both awareness of the real side and the danger of power and other technologies and psychophysical coordinations of people and elements, psyche, going all into a mix where they think that they have to create or do something like build a resort, etc., or whatever, whatever's done anywhere. Same thing with creating wars and economic agendas with power and etc., etc. It's a reflection of that. And so the Indian geoscientist goes to the real side, which is joining with the people. And also, though, he finds that a vortex of, or what I called it's like a waterfall, but like a hurricane inside. Well, I don't remember how I wrote about it much more clear, but it's more like a vortex of water, like a waterfall in a abyss. And he finds himself caught there, and it's being created by the Dark Lord. And so he has to find a way to confront the Dark Lord, or work it out and have it stop, or get out of it. Really pull himself up out of it. And so he does so, and he saves his girlfriend, and also the people, partially by that, but he goes back across the portal and he joins in a kind of, you see that he joins in a kind of energy focus with the people involving some of the natural crystal elements and the, I call them, and so forth and so on, you know, some kind of elemental power that's in the lake or that's been created by the storm coming and the dam that's there. And so that is what he is enabled to do in order to prevent the storm from, it would be like, well, I've got experiences that are related, like singing New You, and having the storm maybe not destroy the house and not having to leave during the storm for the danger of it, you know, whatever. You know, I've had experiences where I definitely felt the protection bubble went up or something like that. And it's very real, and it's not against the spiritual laws to use things like that. You're not doing it necessarily as a direct psychic experiment. You don't need to. It already exists and it's there, and it's just being with it, recognizing it, and sometimes there might be some intentionality. And I was kind of pointing out the relations of that. Same thing, though, that the people have with misusing and using powers, psychic or otherwise, and I wrote it this way. I said, the Indians and people join in a kind of energy focus involving some natural crystal elements and sound energetics, as we would call them, vibration frequency, which ends the storm, and the portal breaks up, because the portal was a link between the dimensions, and that link shouldn't be open like that, which it had been. Something had created this wormhole opening up, and or maybe the wormholes are always there, but they're not supposed to be these conduits that we necessarily, I don't know, you know, maybe I've got it backwards, but the idea being that there is something to that, and it was like singing New You and becoming in agreement with the true reality instead of its manipulations. So part 2 ended with the woman and man together by the lakeside singing New You and waiting on, or kind of just being in the sun shining and waiting on something they are not sure of, but which they've touched and experienced in the real side and are beginning to recognize as the real new wave, which I thought was a really nice way of saying it. Okay, that's part 2 of the double trilogy. Was the book I called Destiny, and I also labeled it the Destiny, the ISTORY, instead of history. And one thing I'll share that I gave to you, Val, was just to call some of these works, or our works, e-box, and create an entire new, let's say, internet interface or relation that is people's, is our e-box books online, so to speak, and give it a name which people could relate to as a specific, but also as a, you know, that's what we're doing, is trying to create things that at least they'll have some identifying, unique identifiers. And therefore they won't be trying necessarily to reference things with all the old references. And because it's not exactly the same thing anyway. It never is. Nobody can actually say what it really is. So these are just the, you know, that Paul Twitchell created the references at the time, and now we're here with this modern day, let's say. Okay. So I also wrote down, I think it's something related to this, I am seeing the level of common ignorance and acceptance of daily life or control without knowing it mostly, as the simulator and the reality is breaking up, and observing this readily, we are in present tense, which is being held to even though it appears to be losing stability or a reality that makes sense, you know, such as the government and the business and whatever, you know. And I'm observing the common ignorance with a level of dumbed downness that's just, the word that just came to me is it's thrilling. It's thrillingly ignorant and dumbed down. It just is mind-boggling. I'm calling it unbelievable. As a reminder to not believe in any of what is being presented, and more so, you know, so I won't be using those references, etc. So, okay. I wrote also locally, the huge field of phosphorus here locally, this is a current experience here, is expanding greatly. And we just drove by it yesterday, and I had not known that it had expanded that much. It's about 40, half an hour away. And, you know, you have to close your windows when you go by. It's not healthy to breathe phosphorus. There is a field near, at the very edge of it, closer, about 15 minutes away, which is right there. They have started to mine the phosphorus, and it's right next to the school, the high school and the middle school, that they built the new buildings and about 6 years ago or so. And they also are still doing the phosphorus. They're opening that up there right next to the school. Unbelievable. But because of their economics, etc., they just, you know, it's just so preposterous. But at the same time, yeah, that's what I mean. Unbelievable. So the local safety level, as we have observed, it's breaking down. And as we have observed, lots of tornado damage and natural storms increasing in the area that used to have very few, if any, tornadoes. It seems to be focused very much on the particular area where I live, in which I was recently accused of causing the storms and havoc as some kind of attracting force, which may well be true. But I'm actually not the real cause. It's just I'm being identified in that personification. You know, I mean, the persons are recognizing the relation. And I get, you know, the people are recognizing the relations. They know that they're under siege. And at the same time, what they're doing is, let's say, is hunkering down and staying in the bubble that is protective at some level, you know, I mean, clearly very protective at times, and not that it prevents events from happening and storms. And I also wrote, another relation to this was I went to New York from here because we had the hurricane that caused us to drive away, having no power for 10 days. And so I got the opportunity to take New UU into the Big Apple, great city of Newark, as I call it, singing a cappella all over the city, all the different sites and spots, and talking to people and meeting them on the street and or everywhere. People from all nationalities, worldwide. I probably met 50 different nationalities or something like that. It was really spectacular opportunity in that sense. And I thinking about doing it again quite a bit recently, or doing something else related to that. I don't know. I have to do it physically, so. But you try things, with the people that you meet and et cetera, and see what kind of next step can be taken. So that's the process there with that. We had a recent storm cut power for 24 hours or more, despite all the repairs that happened in the hurricane. We had a recent storm cut power for 24 hours or more, despite all the repairs that happened in the hurricane and new infrastructure built, too, with 5 new solar power plants also, or that is fields going to the power plant. And so the so-called improvements did nothing to reveal what is really going on or prevent even more damage than before. It's actually worse in some ways, this last recent storm. Curiously, I share the relationship I think that is the moon and its weather effects, and thus there is the idea related, DUANE said very recently, the moon is being manipulated or moved or altered in orbit or energetics, which can create more damage or dangers to the environment here on Earth, to keep people also keep tracking the weather, which they're all doing very carefully. They're objectively being processed through the weather machinery of the media and not identifying that. Meanwhile, I'm working on various projects to gain more awareness, and the new guides assisting in this. Most recent one I did was made a connection between the astrology I call Solaris Solistry and the star GPS system, which is a solar positioning of degrees on the planet. It's in 3 dimensions, or diagonal, vertical, and horizontal. And the same thing is applied towards, I'll simplify it, with the lottery, which I have been able to predict almost exactly this week. Yeah, a couple of days ago, it was spectacular close list I gave out to just a small few people that I have. And, like I said, the same thing, nobody's really paying attention, and I'm not even sure it's a good thing to share exactly because of the use of it, and it's actually a use of power, let's say. But it's also being applied to being aware of the position that we are in, the universal positioning in the Earth system. And hey, we're allowed, and I've never heard anybody say that they're a spiritual person who wants to help people make money or do some kind of money project, And so join the religion because we're going to give you all this money you're going to make all this money from the project, But I'm not saying it's necessarily a totally negative idea, we'll say. Anyway. So this was the addendum I have on this note. If you want me to stop, please let me know right at the end of this. But I did write, what I also have found linked up is the same or relative, I called it a codes instead of a codex. Solaris I used for both the GPS and the new universes. Because you can find the 7 levels of the new universes in the Solaris and describe them, what people are doing in their mental body, their physical body, emotional bodies, and solar body. It's like that because it's still in creation and it's all interrelated. So I've related now the GPS with the star lottery, demonstrating it just like Einstein revealed his own universal theory of relativity by using the moon and sun eclipse, which is how it was proved back in 1917 or something like that. Oh, I just got a relation that was, I hope you don't mind me saying, I'm going to just share it. In any way, it is to know or reveal the accurate position of our celestial bodies. We'll call ourselves having our own celestial bodies. And this is a science example, but it relates in the sense of the scientist studies of relative events in the simulator, just as in the Indian story, that there is a relation to both past and future with our agreement of various relations which we have accepted. And that was the story of the Cherokee half-blood Indian guys and his grandfather. And I just, and how that's all interrelated with the, storm, the dam, and the portal, and light, and blah, blah. And this pulls me back to my own personal relation, which is kind of neat, is that in 1917, my grandfather, and now I get that relation to the story, because the grandfather, I didn't mention him, was a pretty important part of the revelation. The old shaman Indian, we'll say. And but in my real life, grandfather was the promoter of the greatest violinist of the 20th century, Jascha Heifetz. And yesterday, I went to the music store and got something. I wanted to fix my guitar, needed something for it. And I took my friend, whose name is DUANE, and I know that he was, whose name is David, but I know his real name was formerly Duane Allman. Duane Allman, the greatest slide guitarist in the hippie group for the Allman Brothers. Duane Allman was a fantastic guitar player. And my friend, who is very autistic, is really, he can play well. He's got all these guitars, but he's autistic, and I don't think he can play with others. He can't do the rhythm. But I told him, this is who I think you are, etc. So, we've had lots of conversions and conversations, and been with him a bit, and we share all the music together. And I went to his apartment for the first time and just kind of hung out with him. I've been trying to give him these things that I have saved, but he just doesn't want to do that. In any case, so he went with me and to the music store. And in the music store, I started talking about my past history with the people there, with Jascha Heifetz, that actually not myself, but that my grandfather. And the woman who was in line in front of me, was making me wait, which is why I started talking. She knew who that was, and I got to tell her the story about what he was, as this incredible musician who came over from 1917. He was brought over or received by my grandfather, his family, and myself, and him. I don't know. I might have been my grandfather. Okay, so that slipped my tongue, but now I'm thinking about it, going, okay, that's the real interrelation. I'm getting nervous talking about it now. I'm like totally out of my body now. Okay. So
Peter, why don't you, my suggestion, why don't you read some of your book that you've done the commentary here, that might be interesting to hear the book as you read it, like Ava does, in short spurts, like each time for 10 minutes or so.
Yeah.
That's probably enough commentary for today.
Yeah. My point about acceptance on that is yes, but at the same time, I will say that the reason I did this short story here was that so-called short story was to show the different chapters and do the cliff note, because, you know, reading is, you know, it's 100 some odd page, and that's pretty short considering it's a double trilogy, 200-page book. But yes, maybe it won't take so long as I thought. But so thanks, Val. Let me just finish with the interrelation. Is that this one thing? Is that Jascha Heifetz is escaping the Russian, rather the Russians, yes, and the Germanic, actually as a Prussian, which is the country in between, very close to the country where Val, your family is from, Lithuania and Latvia. And my family, my father's family, escaped or left Europe in the late 1800s because of this threat of the Jewish Holocaust, whatever, and they had recognized it way ahead of time. And that's the reason my father never told us about that history at all. Nothing. He told me a little about my family was involved in the music business and like that. But so these things have to be explored in that sense. And that's where I'm going to, is we're sharing our stories, because if you do, you can reveal what's how you came to, and how you got brought to when you know, the world wake-up call. And so that's pretty much, yeah. Thanks, Val, very much for letting me share that. And beautiful. And so I'll do the next story.
Hey, Peter. Nothing's negated. Make some money on your speeches there, so you survive, so you can do better, and you can buy little flyers and pass them out. So there's nothing wrong with making money. That's the old ideas that people have, you know, on things. And so just do what you do as you're presenting it and whatever. You know, if you're out there on the street or whatever, ask for $1 or $2, whatever. It's no big deal. You know, you know what to do with it. So have fun with your adventure. Thank you for sharing.
Yeah, thanks too. I'll just say on the comment is that I'm looking for someone to compile all of the YouTubes where I have put some of the stories there as well. And there's a huge, like 1,000 video files and music that could be downloaded into a file as well. And I'm looking for someone to help me with it. I don't want to plow down Kevin, but I did want to ask if Kevin could do some of these stories into some format. And I think he has done that. So I'm not necessarily asking him formally. It's not a has to agreements. I just wanted to hope you could share that with him, and you know, whatever you guys are doing with it too. There's, yeah, some of it to make money or to do. See, when I was in New York, I was trying to find somebody there, and I didn't find anyone. I found someone on my last day, but he's not properly responding, which is happening everywhere I go. I'm not getting let's put this together. Let's make a Star Rock musical or something like that and make it on Broadway, and you know, all kinds of stuff like that. But I think it's better, at least I'm focusing on doing it like right here now as part of that, of doing it something that actually helps everyone and doesn't have much to do with my gain. I want it to, you know, I want it to be unified at some level, so that even if it's individualistic, that same thing with predicting the lottery. I'm not asking people to give me money because they won the lottery. I know that they should clearly go, oh yeah, man, I'm going to give you, and a lot of them do. They say, if we win, yeah, I'm going to share it with you. And then one friend says, I'll share it with you 50-50. I didn't need an agreement. It's like, you know, it's open, and I'm finding, although that may not be the most profitable money-making way of doing things, this is the other side. It's for a really good topic, and it's being mobilized in a way by the new guides with me. I'm really, really sure of that. And you know, every day, I woke up this morning with the dream vision awareness of, I should say, my brothers who have a lot of money, I'd say, generally. I mean, we've always been well off, but, you know, I know they've got a ton of money and they're hardly giving me squat. They finally helped me and bought this. They said help me, but they wanted me to have a car, is really what they wanted, so I go out and get a job. So they loan me the money for the car, and I'm supposed to pay them $100 a month. That's another story that's ongoing about that. But the thought I had was related to this, that I'm offered this program and said, there's a number of ways I could do this, and it's worth $1 billion. The Mega Millions is worth 500 million. I have the winning number list today. I made it up. I wrote it up, and I'm not sure that I have the 6 exact. You know, I'm sure that my list is really, really close. It's super hard to get, even if you have it really, really close. And the people who are running this system know this extremely well. It's so manipulative. It's incredible. You know, you can win $1 in $100 million bet, and 1 in 100,000 odds, let's say, and your payoff will be 1 in 100,000. Your payoff will be $500 or something like that, or $1,000. I mean, it's that outrageous, the odds versus what they're paying. And it's just back to, yep, that brings us full circle back to where are we now? Exactly, with the dumbed down human population. Unbelievable. Thanks, Dwayne. That's great. And
thanks, Peter.
Yeah.
Yeah.